recording. And I'm going to recording and going to share the screen. Where is my last class, I think we discussed the point 2D. Have I already started about this point 2D class? I think so. Is that the point?
I think we touched over it a little bit.
Okay. Because the other one, I believe we already completed. The other one is the library one. This one is from the point 2D. It's the one defined by existing Java FX package. So this one we already discussed, is it? And I'm just trying to, because for this one, we have no idea. So here the point is, regarding this one, we don't know what's inside it. Is it what the instance variable is? So no knowledge on instance variables. Is it for the point 2D? But we do know of the methods. Is it of the method? That's because later on I'm going to show you. Okay, there are some documents, and then you can find the definition of all of the methods and how to use it. But we also don't know how they implement the method. Is it? Okay, but of course, Java is, we can always read the source code that is open source. Okay, so that's regarding that point 2D. So here I'm trying to explain is just based on that, can we also design this class? Yes, is it? Because we know what a point in two-dimensional Cartesian alternate system is. It's just X and Y coordinates. So we can define both X and Y coordinates, is it, as instance variables. Instance variables. Okay, and this is what? This is a constructor. And the constructor going to assign values to the instance variable. And the toString we also quite familiar. They just output what the X and Y coordinates is, okay, using this specified formatting. And this is formatted out. This is a formatted string output. That so this F means it's floating data, because here it's a double. That so after decimal point, we only take one number, and the percentage that's going to corresponding to the respective variable you wanted to be formatted. Okay, so that's regarding the toString. And the distance method. Distance, of course, it returns the double value, etc. But the distance needs 2 points. Whenever you calculate the point, so this is Cartesian coordinate system. So this is P1, etc. And you do need another point, P2, etc. So we want to find the distance. And here it needs 2 points, is it? So if you call P1 dot distance, then you need to plug in P2, is it? And suppose I want to call P2 dot distance. Then what should I plug in here? So anyone has the answer? I can also call P2 dot distance. So what should I plug in?
P1?
Yes, it's then P1, okay. And P2, The data type is what? It's point2D. This is its data type. Data type. Okay, it's point2D. Okay, and the calculation is pretty straightforward. This is P, and if we call P1 dot distance P2, is it? Then this MX, this is P1's, and this another is P2's. So this one is P2's. Okay, so we need to be careful. This is P1's, and then this another is P2. Okay, so basically another is P2. So that's about this distance method. And also this distance method, if we take a close look, it's an instance method. It is an instance method, okay. And then let's take a look. The other case, the distance, is it? And for this distance, its method type is what? It's static. A static method. Okay, the static keyword, then it means what? It's a class method. Class method, so it's not belonging to any point object. Is it object? So that's why over here, is it over here? If you want to calculate, then you need a 2 point. Then you need a 2 point to 2D objects, so 1 and 2. Okay, 1 and 2. So 2 point 2D. And this is a class method. And then we can find, so when we call the method in main, when we try to calculate the distance, then you need to call what? Like point2D dot distance. Then you plug in, because it has 2 points, you plug in with P1 and P2. Okay, be careful. Here you call point2D dot distance because it doesn't, this is a class method. So here you need to specify point2D, not P1, not P2, okay? And you plug in with P1 and P2, okay? Then this Y is P1, is it? And the 2 is P2. So be careful about the difference between these two. These two, okay? Both are named the same. That's allowed in Python. Okay, that's allowed. Oh, not Python. That's allowed in Java. Okay, in Java, and but we can see the difference. Is it? So this is instance method, and this is what? This is class method. Okay, class. So that's the difference between these two. And then what next? It's calculate a midpoint. Is it? The midpoint, this is instance method. Instance method. So to calculate midpoint, we know it's just find the X and the Y value, is it? And create a new point. Okay, you do need to create, and the return type is also point2D. Then you return it. Okay, return it. So this is a instance method, a point midpoint, and then you call P1 dot midpoint. Then you plug in as P2, is it? And you can also do P2 dot midpoint P1, is it? And both give the same results. Okay. So this is regarding this point2D class. And then let's take a look. For this one, then we don't need. So no need. for the Java fx point to D because we already have our own point to D class defined. And to use that class, and here we have these 2 points, it's a P1 and P2. So here is P1 and here is P2, is it? P1 and P2. Okay, and we have these 2 points, and then you output both points, P1, P2, is it? And you calculate what? P1 dot distance P2, is it? And over here, we can also call what? We can also call point to D dot distance. So both will calculate the distance. So a lot of time it depends, is it which case you want to use. And the midpoint, the same. And we already mentioned this P1 dot midpoint P2 returns what? So returns a new point 2D object. Is it? And so this toString is whose? Is this new point to D's? It's not P1s, it's not P2s, okay? This data toString, it's a new point to D's object. Oh, and here we also wanted to know if those 2 points, if those P1 and P2 points, so P1 and here P2, we want to know if both are the same. Then you need to define a function called equals. And then let's get back to that equals. I forgot where is that equals. Here is that equals. So this equals method, is it? The parameter is what? Is parameter type is a point to D to return the Boolean, okay, return the Boolean. And it's an instance method. So what here, it consider equal as if both objects, the X coordinate is the same and the Y coordinate is the same, then you consider both are located at the same point. Okay, located at the same point. So that's how we define this equals. Okay, this equals. And later on we will see there are some other definition. Okay, so there is another kind of concept is we also do the comparison. So when we compare two objects, you can also use this equal for comparison. Okay, this equal comparison, it's a reference check. Okay, and this equals, here we define it only do the value check. So it's different background. Okay, then let's see, what does that mean? Okay. So the idea is like this. So we have the stack memory. And then over here, we have heap memory. Is it? And here stack, we have main and some method, is it? And we create P1. So P1 is here, is it? It's 1, 1, 3, is it? 1, 2 or 1, 3, I don't remember exactly. And the P2 is at 3, 5. Anyway, a memory block, is it? And then when you do P1 equal P2, if you call this, That means both P1 and P2 got to point to the same location. Okay, so here we have P1, Z, and point to D. And then we do that new point to D, Z1, 3, Z. And same thing for 2, point to Z2D, 3, 5, something, etc. So both point to the different location, is it? And later on, so before this if state, if I do P2 equals P1, then what this means? Then that will change the story. That means you are going to let P2 point also to 1, 3. Then if you do P1 equal P2, then it is equal. Okay, so this will be true. This will return true. Okay, so that's this case. If I cross out this statement, etc. And suppose I do this, P1 equals 1, 3, and then P2 is also 1, 3. 1, 3. Then in this case, both have 1, 3, 1, 3, the same value, but they locate at different memory location. And if you do P1 equal P2, then this will be false. Okay, because they at different memory location, different reference. Okay, but you say, oh, both have the same X and Y coordinates, is it? Then how do we determine if both P1, P2 have the same coordinate? Then if you want to do that, you can call P1 dot equals P2. Then in this case, it returns true. Okay, it is true. Okay, why? Because both have the same value, and that equals just care about if both have the same value. It doesn't care where the memory block is on heap. Okay, so that's the difference between the equals here we define versus that equal. Okay, so let's also kind of understand this concept. Okay, so I think we are done also with this point to D example. What next one we are trying to discuss is another example. This one we also done. We're going to go over a new one, okay? And for this new one, it has 3 Java class, has a date one and an employee one and the driver. Okay, this time we have 3 files. And also for the 3 files, if you take a look, all of them are in 3 different packages. Is it? The first package is date. So date.java is under the employee is under employee package. Okay. Let's then take a look what's going to happen. Okay. So for this data class, it's a pretty simple class. So it has 3 instance variables. And here we have another new concept. So this days per month, it's an array. And we know based on status, so it's a class variable. But there is another new keyword called final. So in Python, if you have the final, that means it's a constant variable. Constant. So here it's class variable, and at the same time, it's also constant variable. So constant variable, that means its value not modifiable. So you cannot change the value. So this array once it defines hold those values, then later on you cannot change it. Okay, it won't allow you to change. Okay, and here we initialize the array using curly brackets. Okay, and then next, let's see. So this is a constructor. It's pretty straightforward. Is that okay? We just assign values. Okay, and this check month, it's a method. Okay, it's a method, and we later on can see. Okay, and let's take a look. And over here we output the data object constructed for the date is, and we have a this. So what is it? And you can see it's blue color here. That means it's a Java keyword. So what basically it's date object itself. Okay, so data object itself, because whenever you suppose you do date, the D equals new date. Is it new date 9? Today is what? Today is 9/3, 2021. Is it something like this? Is it so? This day, this D is a date object. So basically, when you reference, so this over here, this, then it's just D. Okay, so just that object itself. Object itself within the class, how do we reference? We cannot reference this, so that's why we use this specific keyword called this to reference the object itself. Okay, so that's how this part works. And then the set month, it's pretty straightforward. You just assign month. And you can see we have the issue that we just, we didn't, no checking, no precondition check. So this is not a good coding practice, is it? So they may cause a problem, is it? So because whenever you assign that, you're supposed to do check. Okay, and here we have this check month, that method. Okay, check month method, oh, if the value is a valid value, you are going to return that value. Otherwise, and don't worry, later on we will learn, okay? Otherwise, you will throw some exception. And the same thing, because this is for date. So date, you cannot allow it to be any integer value. It has a certain restriction, etc. So we can do the check and also based on the months, etc. So that's only allowable value. And over here, days per month. So this is a class constant variable. Class level constant variable. Okay, and it's an array. So if you know the month, then you know the day, etc. So you need to make sure, okay, the day is within this range, okay. And then the toString method. Okay, toString method, okay, it's just formatted the output, the month, day, and the year. Okay, so that's regarding this date class. And then let's take a look at the second class. For the second class, it's in its own package called employee package. And we are going to use the date class that we just created. So you need to import it. Okay, even though that you create yourself, but because it's in a different package, then you need to specific import. So this is package name, and this is a class name. So you need to import it, okay? And then next, let's see. This employee, is it? Okay, employee have first name, last name, and this second part, instance variable, birth date and hire date. The type is what? Is that date? Is the date? Is it? And this one is what? This is a class variable. Class variable. Okay, then what do we do here? For this is constructor. So the constructor is to take a name, first name, last name, birth date, and hire date. Is it? Then it does the assignment. Is it? And then, because each time if you create an employee, you're going to increment its count. And over here, okay, we have accessor. Yeah, we want to know the birth date. Okay, you return the birth date. And the toString, not a lot of difference, is it? So you just output the name and the date, birth date. And also over here, if you take a look over here, is it the birth date? Oh, the hire date and the birth date, is it? The birth date. So the birth date, is it? So it's matches that birth date. But within this format, why you can directly do that birth date? Because, and also the hire date. Is it the hire date? The hire date, let me ask you, both birth date and hire date, what is their type? Data type. What is their data type? Hire date and birth date? Anyone knows? And for these two, let's take a look, okay. Last name, first name, both of these two, the data type is what? Is a string. Is it a string? And when we call this format, so this /s is for string formatting. For string formatting, so that's fine, okay? So here and here, is it? So data type is string, and that matches. So for string formatted, that type is string, so it matches. But here, for hire date and birth date, it's this /s is for string formatting. But what's the data type for hire date and birth date? Who knows? What's a hire date's data type and the birth date's data type? Who remembers? It is what?
Are they string?
No, it's not a string. You remember? It's date. Is it? The type is date. Is it? When we define the instance, we define as private date, hire date, and the birth date. Is it? So the type is date. Be careful, okay? Whenever you mention variable, the data type is very important. So the type is date. But date here is that's for string formatting. Looks like doesn't match. It should match, otherwise should report error, is it? So if it doesn't matter how that works, that's because what? This is okay. So basically, even though you see just hire date birthday, basically it also call the toString method. and birthday dot to string. It's just they didn't specifically write the to string. So they will call the to string method from the hire date and the birth date internally. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's why, generally speaking, if you want your object output as a certain format, you need to provide your own to string method. Instance method. Okay, that's can help you, okay, a lot. Okay, it's so basically it's like you call this to string method. If we go back, okay, if you take a look, if you require that date, birthday, hire date, the type is date. Okay, and if we go back to the data class, we have that to string method. So it will call this to string method, okay, in this employee class here for this to string, okay, for this to string. Okay, this to string method kind of understand. And this get count is what? It's a class method. Okay, so it's return that class variable. Okay, this employee class, it's kind of, you know, not very complicated. But let's see here. This birth date, the type is date. Is it? The type is date. And the visibility. Visibility is what? It's a private. If the visibility is private, so in main, should you be able to access its reference? No, is it? So it should not be accessed in main. Is it? Then it shouldn't. Okay, it shouldn't. But let's see here. Here, this get birth date. The return type is date. And then you return it. And you change it to what? To public. So now you make it to public. Public accessible. So that is a problem. Is it? That's a problem. And of course, it's not because this variable you can still not in main. If you wanted to type like employee one data birthday, you can still not do that. So compiler won't let you do that. But you can call employee one data get birth date to get its reference. So over here, it returns instance variable birth dates reference. You return its reference, then there are going to be a problem. Okay, that will have a problem. So this kind of design, when we do secure coding, this design is so expose private instance variable. So it's a violation. Okay, violation of the secure coding. Okay, So there is going to be a problem. Okay, we can see that later on. So anyway, so this is regarding employee class. Then let's take a look at the driver. So in the driver, then we need to import both employee class and data class because they two come from two different packages. So you need to import both packages, then dot the class name. Okay, otherwise you will not be allowed to access. Okay, then let's see. In the driver part, that's the first thing. The very first statement we call what? We call employee.cont. This is class name. Is it employee class name? Is it? And this get account, why it can do that? That's because it's class method. So you can directly access, and also it's public class method so that you can directly access it. Okay. And next we created two birthday and hire date, the birth date and hire date. Okay. Then employee one. Then you call the constructor employee. Okay. First name, last name, and then you plug in the birth date and the hire date. Is it hire date? And then you call what? I'm going to output this employee. Is it E1.toString? And then let's see here. Here we call employee one dot get birth date. And it's going to be assigned to a variable called stolen date. Is it? And for stolen date, then you say, oh, okay, I'm going to set month to -100. Let's set month. Previously we said it has a hole, design hole. It doesn't do any precondition check. And there is no negative month exist. So this obviously is wrong. Is it? So attack it basically. Is it? And then if you take a look, you will find, even though employee, so Susan Baker, so the attacker didn't directly attacking employee Susan Baker, but if you take a look, it's so after this set month on the stolen date, you will see Susan Baker's birth date got changed to a non-existing month, -100. Okay, we can take a look at the running result. If you take, okay, initial employee count is 0, definitely, no problem. And the two data object constructed, created. Okay, employee one is Susan Baker, is it? And it's a hire date, birth date are all employee. And this is employee. And did you see? After that, it's changed. Is it? The employee's birth date got changed. It changed to the month, a non-existing value. So this is not what we are looking for, is it? So something is wrong here. Let's go back here. So then why this can happen if we take a look, okay? So this is stack memory, and here is the heap. Oh, I need to clear this up because I don't remember. Susan birth date is July 25th, 1950. 07, 25th, 1950. That's Susan's birth birth date. So here is that stack memory. And here is the heap memory. So we have that our main. And then we have a hire date and the birth date variable, and here we have that hire date is, it's 1985, I remember, a month I don't remember exactly. And the birth date, it's this one, 25, 1950, is it? And then we have E1. E1 is Susan Baker. Susan Baker. Is it? And it also has its birth date and the hire date. So, this is birth date. This is a hire date. So reference to this two memory block, is it? And then over here, we have that stolen date. And the stolen date equals to E1 dot get birth date. Is it call that get birth E1? E1 get birth date is what? E1's birth date, it's reference.
9/25/1960.
Yes, reference to here. Is it? So the stolen date will point to where? Will also point to this memory block. Is it? Will also point to this memory block. Because it will also call this, point to this memory block. That's why when you call stolen date dot set months with -100, then that 07 is going to be replaced with -100. That's how later on, when you output E1, because E1 is supposed to point to this memory, so that's how it get to that -100. So that's why we said this design is, it's violate secure coding rule. Okay, so this is a violation. Okay, so anyway, so that's the first employee. Now you understand of this, is it? Then let's take a look. We have second birth and hire. We have second employee, is it? And it's Bob Philip, and then you get the employee, And over here, we also check the employee data get count, is it? So you want to see how many employee created. So we can see 2 employee, it should be 2. And of course, you can also use E1 data get count, E2 data get count. And we will see all these 3 return 2, okay? So class method, you can also use object to access, but generally speaking, we access class method with class.
Bless you.
Yeah, we can. Okay, and let's take a look at the running result. So this is the second employee, as a Philip Bob, and it has of this output. And then did you see after the second we call the get count? It all gave you 2. So all the same. Okay, all the same. So employee number you can find. Oh, someone has a question?
My bad, I hit the wrong button.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so over here, is it? Over here, and if you take a close look, you will also find like the output for the employee, is it? So basically, that's when we do the system.out.print, is it print? We do the E2, is it to call? It's to string, is it E2? And then did you see it automatically will also output the hire date and the birth date. Is it hire date and the birth date with the formatted? So this basically invoked the date is toString method. Okay, the toString method internally. Okay, we don't need to worry. Okay, we don't need to worry. Okay, so that's the basic idea here. And then let's see. Here, through the get birth date, you know the birth date. But if you take a look, if you say, okay, then I do this, E1 dot the birth date. I try to access it. You will see it's still report error. Is it? It says not package E1. Why is it employee E1? For some reason, so let's take a look at employee. Employee, the birth date, the name, is it? So anyway, so here, if you try to do E1 dot birthday, it still won't allow you do that, is it? So suppose we just want to do, we just do date X equals. Did you see the error message? The birthday is private accessible, is it? So it will have the compile error. So that's wrong statement. So that's not correct. But did you see, you can use get birth date to access its memory block. Then through the memory block, you can do malicious operation. Is it assign a negative value to the month? So here it shows if you have your class has some instance variable and the type is reference, then you shouldn't provide the get method if you want to protect it. But okay, unless if you do want to expose it. But generally, we don't recommend because otherwise you will get this problem. Unless you have some other level of security that you can control, then you can do that. Otherwise, don't do this, okay? Okay, that's all of the information for